This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the 138th Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. I am Jazz, and I'm joined today by, as always, a fantastic panel. I'll go through them in order. We've got Lozz.
Hello.
Is that all you come up with, Lozz? Do you know have a catchphrase?
That's it, mate. I'm running on empty today. For some reason,
all the other
bad
boys
night's sleep.
All the other boys are frantically thinking of something witty to say now, and hopefully they thought of something when I come to you, Harvey.
Sega.
We've got Lewis.
I'm feeling fine and dandy. There you go. I don't even need to make up a catchphrase. I've got my own.
And as a very, very, very special treat on the 138th Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod, we have none other than Daddy Dreamcast himself. It's Mr. Charnock Tom.
Hey kids, it's Daddy Dreamcast. I could never live up that intro. Never live up to that intro.
Well, we call you that all the time now, behind your back.
Behind my back, yeah, and amongst other things.
It sounds like, funny enough, Lewis, you sent something round in the group the other day with those cheat hotlines you used to get in the back of gaming magazines.
Oh, yeah.
It's like call Daddy Dreamcast up now for some red hot Dreamcast action on this 0900 number.
Come and sit on Daddy Dreamcast's knee.
Anyway, before this gets way out of hand, we've got a great show for you today, guys. As always, there seems to be, I say this every show, there seems to be so much going on in the Dreamcast community. And obviously, this is your opportunity to catch up on it all, on your commute to work, on your Sunday afternoon, on your half marathon, however you consume this content. Hopefully you'll leave it in a period of time with a little bit more insight into what's going on. So before we jump into that, it's customary, obvious, for our panel to start off answering a question that we have, just so you know what they've been up to. As this is the first show after Christmas, a good suggestion here by Lewis was what was your favourite Christmas gift that you received? And I'm going to add in there, if you can keep it gaming related, then please do. Tom, I'm going to come to you first, being the man of the moment. How about you for Christmas?
Thank you. So I didn't really get much gaming related stuff for Christmas. However, I did get given a couple of the vouchers for the Xbox from my partner's mum and dad. So I used those to get Alan Wake 2, which I've been playing through, and it's a bit of a psychedelic experience. Great fun, great game, looks amazing. But I just wanted to give a mention to something else that I received in the post, which was just kind of appeared in the post one day, which is a VM2, which is the updated Dreamcast visual memory card. And that was sent to me by Chris Digley, the guy who actually made the thing, Dream Mods. So I just wanted to say thank you to him. He sent that sort of gratis as a thank you for all the sort of support we've given to him on the Junkyard over the years. So that was a nice sort of semi-Christmas present. So, yeah. Oh, the only other thing I've picked up recently is an OSSC, which is an open source scan converter, just to hook my collection of like retro systems up to the 4K TV. And that's been interesting, sort of learning how all that works. And yeah, it's taken me till the year 2025 to actually get an upscaler. So yeah, that's about it.
Welcome to the modern world of retro gaming, mate.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Good. It's good to have you back, mate. It's good to have you back. Lozza, how about you, my friend?
Yes. I didn't get anything game related, so yeah, that's a bit shit, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's something that's ruined my intro, but you know, just make something up. Make something up.
I got a sick set of kitchen scales
Nice. Is it
Now
the
we're
pro?
talking.
Are they the pro model or is it the
Is
base?
the pro model? You've got to install an update on it for a day before you can measure out your raisins.
There's DLC for different types of food.
Yeah.
Is it always on? Is it always connected?
With it, though.
Yeah, always connected.
Yeah.
Weighing as a service.
The scary thing is that probably is true of most appliances these days with some online connection and various bits and pieces. Harvey, what about you? Can you salvage this segment, please?
I got myself a game. I got myself a Dreamcast game, even better. I bought myself Slave Zero, right? Because I've been looking at it. It's an interesting one because they did a new
prequel.
Installment in the Slave. Yeah, it's a prequel, but it's like 2D beat 'em up, isn't it? And that made me think, bloody hell, there's that Slave Zero game on the Dreamcast, which I'd never kind of heard about or looked at, and I bought that and I've been playing that, and it's a really interesting game. It and Omicron, the Nomad Soul, are so similar in terms of setting and world, which I find really interesting. Is that like brown kind of millennium era sci-fi? And so I've been playing that, and then realized that the controls are almost awful, like they're so bad that I decided to stick it in an emulator and then remap all the controls. And there's a brilliant game in there if the controls are contemporary.
I remember it being like, when you like look, you have to go the other way, like inverted. I remember that on Slave Zero. And I think I played it for a bit and I was like, I can't get on with this.
It really is one of those, you just cannot get on with it. It was just such a shame. And do you know what the annoying thing about the Dreamcast version is there's no in-game music. The music does not play in game, and it could have been.
You would pick up on that, wouldn't you?
You should hack it and add some tunes.
Well, I just played the sound because I really like the soundtrack. The soundtrack's fantastic, and so I played it at the same time, cheating, like out of YouTube and stuff. And it would be cool to hack it and maybe like remap the controls and get the music to actually play. But that's what I got up to over Christmas. But I think it is a gem if the controls aren't totally rubbish.
When you just mentioned it, I was going to say exactly the same thing because I played Slave Zero last year, I think, and I thought exactly the same thing. Initially, I was like, this is another one of those Dreamcast games that was sort of critically reviewed as being an average kind of game, just a slightly above average game back in the day. And when you play it now, it actually looks really good and it's aged really well. It looks great. Everything looks really good about it. But the controls is a real sort of sticking point to actually... enjoying
Wasn't there there was a Slave Zero kind of spin-off first-person shooter, wasn't there? I think it was released for like one of the Doom games or Quake on the. I'm sure I played it on the Switch. I think it was just like a mod. You can activate within the menu, and I'm sure it was something to do with Slave Zero. I might be completely going off on a really odd tangent, but I seem to remember it in the recent past. But if it exists, then it does. But if it doesn't, then I apologise.
The prequel that you mentioned, Harvey, is actually something that I've had it on my wish list on my PSN account since it came out because it's one of those games that I've got like a really passing interest in because of the Dreamcast collection. I'm just waiting for it to be in a sale that I think is cheap enough for me to just pick it up, and I think it might live forever on my wish list in case it gets discounted to like a £5 or something. I might pick it up, but I don't think it's only about £20 anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it is about £20. I haven't played it. If you do see it cheap, let me know.
I will.
Tom, this does exist. It's called Slave Zero X Episode Enyo.
Excellent.
First person shit looks real cool. Yeah, it's interesting that this IP is like kind of been woken up and put back to sleep and woken up and put back to sleep. It's really interesting, isn't it?
There we go. Who would have thought we would have spent a good few minutes talking about Slave Zero on Space DreamPod? Thank goodness it wasn't my selection for the 10-question quiz at the end of the show. I did actually consider it, funny enough, which is interesting. Lewis, how about you?
Hi. I did quite well for Dreamcast this Christmas. My birthday is just before Christmas on the 22nd, so I kind of like consider that all to be kind of the same period of time. But so I did well Dreamcast-wise on my birthday. My wife got me Trick Style and Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver because you guys were chatting about it on a podcast recently, and I was like, I need to get a PAL copy because I've only ever had an American copy that PC Wizard had in a competition that I won. So yeah, if anyone wants an American copy of Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, hit me up. But yeah. So I got those, and that's really cool. I think Mike Rogers, who's been on the Junkyard podcast before, teased me once because he said, "How do you not own a copy of Trick Style? As it's like such a cheap game." But yeah, I'll look forward to playing that. And what else did I get? I got Silent Hill 2 as well, the remake, and Alone in the Dark. And I just finished playing Alone in the Dark. I really, really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really cool game, and it's such a shame that it didn't really get that much attention, and ultimately the studio who made it got shut down, which sucks because I just finished it and I thought it was brilliant. It's cool, to play Resident Evil and to Silent Hill, but like it was nice to play kind of a survival horror game like that in kind of a bit of a different setting than I suppose what we're used to. So yeah, that was great.
And the series really that started it all as far as modern day survival horrors are concerned as well, right? Alone in the Dark. I know there were games before it, but that was the one that kind of brought the perspective on it, which then Resident Evil kind of sort of standardized, if you like, for themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was on my list to pick up as well at some point.
Yeah, same.
I've got such a huge backlog at the moment, so it's like Silent Hill is another one that I'm really looking forward to playing, but I've got so many long single player games that I'm just working through right now. There's no point, because I buy most of my modern stuff digitally anyway. There's no point in me buying it for it to sort of sit on my hard drive until it's ready, when they have sales so frequently now on PSN Store and stuff. So definitely some I'm going to pick up. Good. I had quite a few gaming things for Christmas, actually. I had, Dreamcast-wise, I had Captain Barrel, the latest Neobyte Force release. They've got quite a few nice kind of packaged indie games now, nice jewel cases in the blue PAL style, so that was nice to get. And then I had Final Fantasy VII. I never forget if it's remake or what's the other one called, the second part? It's not remake, it's
Rebirth.
Rebirth.
Remake and
Thank you.
I get them
Rebirth,
mixed up too.
So I was looking forward to that one because that's one game that apparently the standard PS5 doesn't run particularly well, which has obviously all been PS5 Pro enhanced now. So me and the wife are big Final Fantasy fans, and yeah, we've been playing through that, and that is just one awesome game. It's massive and always nice.
How is your experience so far with the PS5 Pro? James, if you could give us a bit of a summary.
I mean, to be honest, I think if you're sort of into your games and you're playing a lot, it's not like obviously different, like that much different between the two, the Pro and the standard. I think where it is nice is that you're so used to having the slider between performance and graphics nowadays, and you have to choose what you want to prioritize, and that's still true to a degree on a lot of PS5 Pro enhanced games as well. But I think the difference is, because I always go for performance, because trying to play games in 30 frames a second now, I know Lewis will be rolling his eyes. It just makes me, it genuinely makes me like have motion sickness. Like when I kicked off Final Fantasy VII, it was I think I must have set it to graphic wise, and it was in 30 frames, and I just had to stop and change it because I was feeling sick. But
don't play Trick Style then. That's about 3 frames a second, isn't it?
But I think for like older stuff, it's not so bad. But in modern games where there's so much graphically going on and the worlds are so like rich with stuff, you just notice it so much more running at 30. So, but the big difference is when you put it in performance mode now, you still get obviously the better frame rate and stuff, but also it looks so much better than it would have done on performance mode if you put it on standard PS5 game in. But yeah, I mean, it's not something I would super recommend. Is it worth an upgrade? Depends on how much money you can make back off your old PlayStation 5 console. Is it worth the extra like 200 or 300 quid it's going to cost you? It depends again on how much you use it. The PS5 is my primary system now this gen, so it was kind of a no-brainer for me, really. And I really wanted, obviously, my kind of original love before the Dreamcast was the original PlayStation. And the fact that they brought out the PS5 30th anniversary edition, which I was very lucky to manage to get. that was kind of the sweetener for me, really, and obviously that'll hold its value pretty well for whenever or if ever I want to sell it. I think they're currently sort of around the $2,000 mark if you do want to buy one, which is pretty crazy.
Flipping heck, that is mental, isn't it?
I suppose as the more games come out that make good use of it, as the generation goes on, you might start to notice more and more like, I'm so glad I got a Pro. Do you know what I mean? Like, whereas now maybe it's a bit early days.
Yeah, when developers start really like utilising those extra bits and bobs, we might see certain things that...
You'd think things like GTA 6, for example, is going to be the real kind of the reason to upgrade, if you like, because I think that's going to probably be needing the juice.
Yeah. The crisis of PS5. Remember when everything used to be measured by that game?
Can it run crisis?
The final bit of gaming merch I got for Christmas, from PS5 Pro all the way on the other end of the spectrum. Literally, I got the Spectrum, which is, for those who haven't seen it, a new version of the original ZX Spectrum. So it's got the rubber keys, which is really nice. The form factor on it's really, really good, but obviously it's got your modern day amenities like HDMI and things like that. So it's got like 48 games built in, but it's got an SD card slot. So literally you could fill it with every single piece of shovelware that was ever made for the Spectrum. But I've just been playing around with it this week because you can just fire it up in original mode and just go straight into basic and start writing some code. So I've just been playing around with that this week and just making objects bounce around the screen like I did when I was about 8, when I first had one. So yeah, that's pretty fun. Just a nice little thing to have on my office desk next to my Dreamcast. So if your retro gaming goes back that far, definitely worth picking up because the build quality on them is superb.
Oh, great stuff! I'm still waiting for somebody to make a little. Like miniature but modern version of the Amstrad CPC 464 Plus to take me back to my childhood. But it probably exists already. I've just not looked hard enough.
I mean, there's niche and then there's niche, and I think it's when you start looking into those sorts of things. All right then, let's move on. As I said, we've got loads of news to cover. The first of which is a very, very exciting project that's been going on for a little while now. And, we talk a lot about how active the homebrew community is and the indie community is within the Dreamcast community. And, how do we get this great work that's going on visible to the masses, which is obviously what sites like Dreamcast Junkyard and other fan sites out there aim to do. We have the Orcface organised, or partly organised. There is a homebrew coding jam, if you like. They're calling it Dream Disc 24. And the idea being, very quickly before I hand over to the panel to discuss, is that indie people can work on a game, submit a concept for a game, and then ultimately the top 10 games from that list will all get compiled into a disc that people can buy, pop it in their Dreamcast and play each of these games. Whether or not then that they will turn into fully fledged releases or something like that is obviously something we'll wait and see. I know something like Driving Strikers, for example, originally started off as a similar sort of concept before it was turned into a fully fledged game. So the one thing I want to say on this before I hand over to you guys is that the quality of the games that I've seen that people have put videos of and things like that, I've not checked any out myself to play, but the quality of what I'm seeing is really unbelievable, and some of the games look fantastic, which is not only a testament to the indie development community, but also how far along the open source Dreamcast coding tools have come along since then. Allowing these things to be produced. So yeah, there's been plenty of standouts. Lewis, I don't know if you want to take the lead on this one, but there's been obviously so much buzz around this over the last few weeks and months. I don't know where you want to start, really.
Yeah, so there is so a lot of different kind of entries, a lot of great variety of genres and graphical styles, and there's two entries that aren't necessarily games but are more just kind of interesting software. Like there's one where someone's managed to get Java virtual machine running on the Dreamcast, which is a big deal because that in itself is like what you were saying about how far along the development tools have come. So in this case, instead of them developing with C++, they can move to Java, which is like a better type of development tool. I know nothing about what any of this is to do with. It's just, this is what I've been informed by much more intelligent people than myself. But so you got that, and then there's 2 VMU games which I tested out, which are really cool. It's so cool to see new VMU games. So I have an article coming up that will actually detail all of the 24 entries, which is quite fitting because of the Dream Disc 24. But check that out. That'll be up by the time this goes up. Lozz, I know you've been playing a lot recently. I don't know if you want to add anything else here.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time the other night running through all the entries that I'd slapped onto my GDMU. As you say, there's a lot of variety, which is really promising. Some things here that are totally unique that we haven't seen before. Certainly not that I'm aware of in the kind of homebrew or indie scene. And yeah, I think there's a few titles here that really, with a little more development, probably could be released as kind of fully fledged games. I mean, there's a few that are kind of on the spooky kind of end of the spectrum that I think take a lot of inspiration from Fragmented Almanac, that I think is a really promising area that could be explored. I think they were called The Eternal Sleep and The Order of Titan, for example. The opportunities to have some actual like story narrative driven homebrew indie games. And then there's a handful of goes where I was just writing down.
Trick Truck is the one for me. That looks the bomb.
Trick Truck
looks the bomb.
Trick Truck looks amazing.
I actually fired it up this morning.
Big Drill. I think they missed a trick with Big Drill. It should have been Big Fucking Drill. Because that's the kind of vibes I got it off of it. I was like, yeah, Big Drill, Big Fucking Drill. So anyway, I think we're going to do a full... we'll probably do a full podcast dedicated to this at some point in the future as well, I believe.
We won't go into too much detail on each of the individual titles, but Harvey, Tom, what have been the sort of standouts for you so far that you've seen of the 24? A couple that you've sort of thought, that looks awesome, or that plays really well?
This morning I downloaded, like quickly before we started recording, I downloaded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them and just like booted them up quickly and had a little go. Trick Truck is really funny, and like when you play it, it's a bit like Untitled Goose Game. When you're playing it, you're just laughing. It's just the spectacle of it is hilarious.
I love how visually that game looks as well. I mean, you guys know me. I've said it a long time before. I think when I'm playing an indie game, if it looks like a contemporary game that could have been released, back in the mid 90s, early 2000s, I'm all in. And Trick Truck just looks like those screenshots could have been in, CVG or something back in the day. It looks so time correct.
When you first get like the controls down of it, it's, you think, oh, this is a little cute idea. And then you kind of work out that you can do 180s and you can reverse. And then it's quite satisfying, like jumping onto a rail and grinding and then like reversing off the rail and doing 180s. And I actually have had quite a bit of fun with it. The other one that stood out was AJ02, which is like a demo scene quote thing where it like uses the Dreamcast chipset to like make 3D graphics. It's like a graphics generator thing with music, which was really interesting, and it looked fantastic on my telly because I've got an upscaler. I've got like an Atlona upscaler, and it looked fantastic. And then, Big Drill was actually really cool, but Big Drill's an idle game. So I only heard of this term from the Big Drill itch.io page, which is like a game that you just watch happening, and you can change a few bits and bobs, but the drilling, actually, you don't do it yourself, which I find interesting. And the Eternal Sleep, I really got big fragmented almanac vibes from that one. Impressive graphics too.
I really liked the one called Sky Pirates of Atalmar. I thought that one was graphically really nice, and also like the thing is with these games, a lot of them are demos, and obviously with the Game Jam, it's developed quite quickly. They had a little bit of time, to be fair, but with this one, I felt like just the controls felt really smooth, and I think it could definitely be developed into something a little bit more. And then also Meteor Rain, I really liked this little one where you like these little spacemen running along the bottom of the screen dodging meteors. It's very simple, but it has a 4-player mode, and I think that'd just be a blast with 4 people. Not tried it yet, but that'd be cool to get out at the the Dreamcast party.
Yeah, Sky Pirates is one of those games actually that I know the devs of that have said that they want to spend a bit of time on it, like to actually finish it off as a fully fledged game, which would be really cool. So hopefully we'll see that, because that one does look pretty cool, and that's got online multiplayer written all over it. If they can tap Luke up and get some insight into the network inside of it, because that could be mega as an online game. Tom, anything caught your keen eye?
Yeah, just to echo what everybody else has said, really, Trick Truck was the main standout for me. But then Random Rally, Suburban Trial, that seems quite an interesting little game. I'd like to see that progress somehow. Starship Madness as well, sort of 3D shoot 'em up spaceship game. Quite like the look of that.
I wrote in my article, Tom, that it reminded me of Cybermorph.
I was just going to say it looks like a Jaguar game. That's why Tom likes it.
It needs more of the green-faced lady in the corner for full Cybermorph.
For the
experience.
Record, I'm not disparaging the dev. It's a very cool game. Just they might hear like, "Oh, you compared it to the Jag." Like, I'm offended.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing in these circles. That's not a bad thing. Yeah, Mega. Well, there's so much to discuss about this. Obviously, we're all really excited about it. I'd love to see more and more projects happen like this. And the hope is, obviously, with Orcface now going into publishing, which we'll talk about a bit later, there's a good chance that a number of these games could end up as future Orcface releases, presumably, which would obviously be mega. So look out for Lewis's article. Then we'll have all the games detailed in there, and we'll put the link to the Dream Disc 24 itch page, which has just got a summary and then links to all the games, so you can download them as you wish in these episode notes, so you can have a look at there as well. Right, next up is another bit of huge Dreamcast news, and if you haven't heard about this, it's you must have been under a rock for the past few months. It's not every day that what's happening in the Dreamcast development community is sort of well published and talked about across the gaming industry in general, and I'm struggling to think of something that's made as big a splash as this particular topic in recent times, at least. I'm of course talking about the Grand Theft Auto 3 Alpha port over to the Dreamcast, which answers the eternal question of could the Dreamcast have ever run GTA 3, which was obviously a huge PlayStation 2 release at the time, and speaking personally, was the one game that I was keeping hold of my PS2 for to sort of play back in the day. Lozz, I know you've done work on this from a testing perspective, so you're probably the best person to kick this off. Tell people what's already out there, but give us the lowdown on GTA 3 for the Dreamcast.
GTA 3 has come to the Dreamcast. I suppose I best just correct that slightly. I did a tiny bit of testing on this. I don't want to take too much credit. I literally did a little bit of testing a few days before its release. So there's a whole list of other testers and a list of all of the developers on the website dca3.net that people can direct their main praise to. But yeah, this made such huge waves. I suppose it's understandable to some extent why there'd be interest in the wider gaming press with this, because it's a great story to have people clicking through on, right? GTA 3 on the Dreamcast. It works wonders for their click-through rates, I'm sure, and their advertising revenue. We released an article on the day that the alpha release of this came out, which was New Year's Eve. And that included a little interview with the developers, which I'd encourage folks to read. Give some nice insight from them, straight from the horse's mouth. And as you said, but really you'd have to be living under a rock, or I don't know, maybe have a newborn baby or something to not have heard about this. But the key facts are basically that a fellow called SKMP, Stefanos, he gathered together a pretty star-studded lineup of volunteer developers, and they've ported GTA 3 to the Dreamcast. It's rightly called DCA 3, and they released it on New Year's Eve. And basically what they've achieved in the space of just under 6 months is pretty astounding. I'd highly encourage anyone who hasn't checked it out yet to go to the aforementioned website, dca3.net, and compile a copy for yourselves. And you'll be able to see...
If you own the PC version, of course.
Yes, you need to own a PC version of this. Fortunately, it works with the copy that you can buy directly from Rockstar. Check out their website, check out our interview. Absolutely, it's really phenomenal work from these devs.
I just want to note as well, it says out everywhere that you read about this that it's the alpha version, but for an alpha, it plays like astonishingly. Like when you hear alpha, you think it's going to be like, cars disappearing and like things just like going crazy, but no, it plays amazingly.
It's absolutely good enough to, I felt the same when I booted it up, and I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And then I thought, I'm going to put it down because I'm going to wait. Because I'm going to try and play through it. I'm going to wait and to see what's coming next in terms of the newer builds.
Yeah, I've played it as well, and I played maybe a couple of hours through the sort of story missions, and it just feels like it's amazing that it's here on the Dreamcast, but it's that good that you kind of forget that after a while. It's just like, it's Grand Theft Auto 3. What's the big deal, kind of thing, But then you kind of take a step back and think to yourself, well, it's actually, I'm playing it on a Dreamcast, and the amount of work they've done to it to actually make it a Dreamcast game, even to the point where they've put in the prompts that pop up in the corners, and telling you how to control the game, you've got all the correct button inputs and all that kind of thing. And it's just like the amount of, attention to detail is just fantastic. My partner came in and I tried to explain to her the importance of what she was seeing on the screen. And it didn't register. Do you know what I mean? I was like,
same story in my house, mate.
It's Grand Theft Auto Dreamcast. What do you mean you're not impressed? Like, she's like, oh, that's nice, darling. That kind of thing. But we're very impressed with it.
It's made all the Dreamcast fans feel a little bit more kind of like, yeah, the Dreamcast can do this, because there's even like aspects of it. I can't exactly explain them technically, but like I've seen posts where people have actually said, this particular graphical thing, not even the PS2 can do it that way, but the Dreamcast can. So there's even like bits that it does better than the PS2 in some regards. Like,
yeah, Digital Foundry do a sort of an analysis.
Yeah.
That was really good.
It's a really, really good video. That's like the best thing I've seen on it, the best coverage. I urge anyone to go watch that, the Digital Foundry thing.
Other than, of course, Lozz's interview.
Of course.
No, it is a great video. It is a great video.
The fact that the likes of Digital Foundry are picking stuff up like this just goes to show, how mainstream this coverage has gone, though, because Digital Foundry are the single probably greatest source of comparisons of contemporary stuff, right? They do all the blinking reveals for Xbox and places like that, and they do like comparisons between the various versions of the consoles and things like that. And I think to hear how were gushing with praise for it was just, it just the icing on the cake, I guess, for the team involved. And as you guys say, alpha is such a it's such a negative word, really, in many ways to your initial perception of it. But then when you see it running, as you say, to the untrained eye who's not a seasoned professional in the industry, the game just looks like it should have been made on that console. It runs exactly like it should. Okay, the frame rate is slightly less than what it runs on PS2, but yeah, it's been a brilliant feel good story for the Dreamcast community. I think.
I suppose it's kind of almost it's like rewriting of history, isn't it? Because it's like, Dreamcast never played GTA 3. That's what a lot of people thought for a long time, and then here it is. And I can't blame the outlets for running so many stories on it. Like, of course, it's like that's why it's such a big deal. It's like the impossible has happened.
There's threads going back like over a decade on Dreamcast Talk, and I remember even on the boards I was on before Dreamcast Talk where this would be raised, and the admins were a lot harsher back then on the board I used to be on, and they used to just get shut down. Someone would create a new thread saying, GTA 3 could run on the Dreamcast, and the admins were just like, shut up, and just locked it.
Not this again. Just on that topic, actually, Lozz, it reminds me of way back when we interviewed Bernie Stolar. The interview is obviously still up on the blog, but he, in one of the answers to one of the questions, he actually mentioned that that they wanted to get Grand Theft Auto 3 on the Dreamcast. So it's almost kind of bittersweet in a way that he's since passed and he never actually got to see this, because I think he would have, it would have been quite nice that he had the ambition to do that back then when he was like heading up Sega, and now it's actually come to fruition. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really interesting now to see, now the initial hype and everything's died down a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how much progression is made over the coming weeks and months and however long as it moves out of alpha state, or if this is going to be the kind of the big release now for a good few while, because we've got to remember, everybody involved in this is doing so in their own time. This isn't a commercial project or anything like that. So fantastic to see it running. The fact you can play the game from start to finish, with no obvious issues is remarkable. And I think we need to remember that we're always we've always got something that shocks us in the Dreamcast community, because I genuinely, especially when I saw the early kind of footage of this, the pre-alpha footage, it's amazing how quickly it all came together. Because whilst it was pretty impressive, the early stuff, it was running pretty slow and choppy, and there were graphical bugs and things like that. So for what they've managed to achieve it's remarkable.
I didn't think we'd be playing it by I was going to say Christmas, but it was New Year, wasn't it? But yeah, wow. I remember seeing some of those original bits of footage and thinking, oh, this is cool as like a showcase, but obviously it's, some of those earlier videos, it didn't look like, it was playable whatsoever.
Is that when the cars were invisible and stuff?
Yeah, crazy graphical stuff going on, and then just to see it out now, in such a short space of time, it's mind-blowing.
Right, so from one game that was synonymous with a competing platform, should we say, back in the day, we have another one that's been ported to the Dreamcast. We've mentioned this in previous podcasts, but the final version of Doom 64, which some people would argue is one of the best versions of Doom, is now being released on the Dreamcast. As the one man on the panel today who's had a Jaguar copy of Doom signed by John Romero, it's probably worth you taking a lead on this one, Tom.
Yes, as you alluded to there, Doom 64 is now on the Dreamcast. Doom 64 is possibly my favourite version of Doom, was by pure coincidence. I remember getting it back when the N64 was my main sort of daily driver of a system. I was really looking forward to it before it came out, and would seek out any information about this new Doom that was coming for the N64 back in the day. Obviously, fast forward to 2020, and it was re-released on modern systems. And as soon as it was released, I was like, I'm getting that because I love Doom 64, and there's not really any other way to play it other than on an N64, on genuine hardware. But now, obviously, here in 2020, it was released in 2024, but obviously here in present day, 2025, Doom 64 has landed on the Dreamcast, and it's the work of a guy called J.N. Martin, 84, who is a very talented guy, clearly, and he's been helped by a guy called Immorpha and several other people from around the Doom sort of community. I know Falco Gerkis was involved somehow with the development tools, and a load of other people. But basically, they've brought Doom 64 to the Dreamcast, feature complete. It's a phenomenal achievement, and it actually does things that the other versions of Doom 64 that have been released for other sort of modern systems. They don't do. They don't have the real time lighting of the Dreamcast version. They don't have the bump mapping in a Dreamcast game. What is this magic? The game is just absolutely unbelievable. It plays super, super smoothly. You've got additional content in the form of like add-ons like the Lost Levels. And there's also the first episode of the original Doom, but sort of remade in Doom 64 kind of visual aesthetic with additional sections to the levels. You've got the amazing soundtrack from Andrew Holshot, I think his name is, who did IDKFA, the remix of all of the Doom tracks playing in the background. It's just an unbelievable package. This could, again, I know we say this quite often on this podcast, but this could have been just released on a disc, like in a box for the Dreamcast back in the day, and it would have been like one of the best releases for the system. That's how good it is. It's so, so good. I might be slightly biased because I'm a massive Doom fan. But Doom 64 is, like I say, one of my favourite versions of this game. And to have it on the Dreamcast with these improvements is just mind-blowing. So, there is an article and an interview up on the Dreamcast Junkyard blog, which we'll link to in the show notes for this episode. But if you've got the ability to compile a copy of this with the stuff that J.N. Martin has put up on GitHub, then I would encourage you to do so and prepare to have your mind blown at how good sort of indie dev can be. And I know we've just talked about Grand Theft Auto 3, which is obviously the pinnacle, but this is, for me, as impressive as an achievement on the Dreamcast. Yeah.
I always liked the unique sort of style that Doom 64 had, because it came out at a time where there was just a bit of a Doom overload, wasn't there? Because you had kind of like Doom 2, then you had like Final Doom and all these other level expansions, and it was great that they were bringing all these versions of Doom out, but they all kind of looked the same, and I think that look had been there for sort of 3-4 years, and then Doom 64 came out, and it just had this fresh feeling to it all. It was similar to when they brought Duke Nukem out on the N64 as well. It just had this new feeling about it. It felt like a new game. Would you say that's part of why it's so loved in the Doom community, Tom? I
think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. If you think back to that era when Doom 64 originally launched, the N64 was it was kind of an unknown quantity at the time. It hadn't really. It had only been out less than a year. Certainly in the West, and there was this whole thing about how it was the fastest, most powerful games console, and all the games are going to look amazing, and there was this whole big push about how it had Silicon Graphics workstation style technology in it, and then when you saw these screenshots of Doom 64 with these completely reworked sprites, which all look quite kind of they've got that kind of almost like plasticine style look to them, and it was like, oh wow, they've really brought, because Doom, it's quite pixelated game, isn't it? Especially when you're playing it on things like the PS1 and the Jag and the Saturn back in the day. We won't talk about the Saturn version. But when to see these new monsters and these new levels, it was kind of like, oh, this looks interesting. So yeah, I think that whole aesthetic, the newly modelled enemies and guns, the chain gun in particularly, is completely overhauled from the original Doom, and it actually feels like a really powerful, worthwhile weapon, as opposed to just the sort of it only fires the bullets that the pistol takes, but does faster. Now it's like, You know, it's really like the whole screen shakes. You know what I mean? You got this blue flame coming out. It's like, oh my god, this is amazing. So, can you tell I like Doom? Can you tell I like Doom 64?
Look out for Tom's Doom podcast launching soon. I'm sure. And then from one iconic shooter to another, really, which has also just landed on Dreamcast, which is Counter-Strike. And what's very exciting about this one, Lewis, you sent this link round earlier, actually, is the fact that it's online compatible, currently only with a broadband adapter, but I'm sure if the right people get in a virtual room together, it'll be DreamPod compatible before you know it. But yeah, running online, you can play it online if you've got a broadband adapter or via an emulator. And yeah, this is another one that just kind of popped up out of nowhere, if you like, from a release perspective.
Such a cool thing to come out of the woodwork, this. It's really exciting, you know, because like we've got Quake, which is brilliant fun online, but Counter-Strike, I mean, probably one of the best, one of the most popular first-person shooters of all time.
I used to play this at this youth club I'd go to, and there was this one guy who got really annoyed if you like peeked at the other monitors. Like he's like, "Don't you effing look at my screen again! Like, you know, I'll punch you." So all right, chill out. But I love this game. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it made it that more intense. But yeah, this is wicked. Like, and this is just to add. This one is, you know, early days at the moment, but the footage looks good. It's a bit choppy, like, you know, it's stuttering a bit, but like, you know, they're going around and they're, you know, shooting other players, and it's online, so that's pretty wicked. So yeah.
Can I just ask, Lewis, is the thing about this the fact that it's online? Because I know that Counter-Strike's been on the Dreamcast for years. You know, is it just the fact that it's got this sort of online capability that's the big sort of thing?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's a new engine. This thing called.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how you pronounce it, like X-3D. So that's like a new engine that they're doing, that they've managed to get working on the Dreamcast, and they've I think the online is the big deal. But this is another one that I noticed, you know, people posting about, and then I was looking online this morning to get the links, and I noticed like how much traction some of these things have got. You know, because Counter-Strike is a huge series on PC, isn't it? So. Yeah, it's another sort of like got that weight to it like GTA 3 has.
It's going to be so fun playing this online and just testing it out. Anyone wants to have a go, let me know. I guess we'll wait a bit to see what developments come, you know, if they release a new version or what have you. But I'd love to give it a go with someone if they want to play.
I was going to ask if any of you three here, Lozz, Harvey, James, if you've like heard much about this from like other people in like that online community you inhabit. One day I'll join, but not today.
I've not been on Dreamcast Talk in a while, but I'd be very surprised if it's not being discussed on there, which is where most of the announcements get made and things like that.
There's been a little bit of chat in. A lot of that kind of scene is mostly hanging out in Discords now. Like there's one called Sega Online that's very popular. There's been a little bit of talk about it, but I think it kind of just came out the woodwork. It just kind of came out of nowhere. I think, you know, someone obviously, this fellow, I think it's Crafty24, I think who ported the engine. And then I think they probably just thought, well, why not try getting it online? And it worked and immediately captured some footage. So I think it's still very, very early days. But if they can get a kind of a version out there that's playable enough, and so that folks will, you know, a broad audience will give it a go, then I'm sure it will be a fan favourite. Because it's becoming a bit of a trend now, because there was already Classic Cube, that's another kind of homebrew port that has had online features implemented for the Dreamcast. So we're kind of picking up a bit of traction here now with homebrew and online capabilities, which is exciting.
For sure. All right, so a few other homebrew ports are happening as well, which have sort of come out of the woodwork again in the last couple of weeks. The first of which is one that I'm pretty excited about, which is Carmageddon, being ported to the Dreamcast by a chap called Troy Davis. There's a few videos of this doing around. I know Sega Guru has done a nice video on this as well. But yeah, this was a game that I actually had the big box version of on PC back in the day, and I was far too young to own this game when it came out. Don't really know how I managed to convinced my parents to allow me to have it, because yeah, it's pretty brutal. I remember when the N64 version came out, they censored the living daylights out of it.
That's the only one I've played, and it's horrendously bad.
Yeah, because didn't they change the people for zombies or something?
Yeah,
like that?
zombies. Yeah,
And then made the blood green. Do I remember that? Yeah. I played the PC version when I was a little kid, and I was way too little to be playing it. And what was it? Is it like is it a racing game or is it like a destruction game?
It's pretty much a racing game, but the idea is to run over people. I think you get like bonus. you get like bonus points and stuff, and like trick points and stuff for like actually just massacring people on there.
Bit like Postal vibes. You got like dark, early kind of 3D PC, weird grey area time.
But I just always remember like the character that you chose. There was two characters, I think, a male and a female one, and then they had like the full motion video of that character on the screen.
I'm watching it right now. It's so weird.
Yeah, as if they were driving, sort of thing. And as they're like massacring hordes of people, they're just like pulling these faces and stuff, and it's just like it is a wild game to see on Dreamcast. But yeah, I really enjoyed it back in the day, and again, it's one of those ones that's kind of got a bit of it's sort of well known because it was so controversial. I think it was kind of in that that kind of bracket with the likes of what was that other game, the Hitman game? What was it called? I can't remember it now. It's funny enough, I was reading about it in one of the Dreamcast magazines. I think it was they did a Dreamcast magazine where the theme was like, it was called the Blood Issue. I've got it here now, actually. It was when Resident Evil Code Veronica came out, and they were talking about all the controversial games that had come up to that point, and like how much controversy that each of these games sort of had. And you read the list now, and it's like, yeah, these aren't controversial. Like, if you think about it now, Kingpin is the one I was thinking of with all the like guts and stuff. But they've got like some of the games in here is like Carmageddon, Mortal Kombat, Duke Nukem, Operation Wolf, Barbarian, Doom, GoldenEye. It's just like, honestly, this is how tame the game industry was back then compared to what the sort of levels of violence you get nowadays. But yes, anyone else going to check this one out either now or if it gets a more formal release?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Just to cleanse my memory of the horrors of the N64 port.
I was going to say,
I've seen the footage on YouTube, and it does look pretty cool. So I mean, no doubt it'll be released as a download, so you can just whack it on a GDMU and check it out. So. Yeah,
you owe it to yourself if you've only played Carmageddon 64 to at least check it out. The next one is not something I'm familiar with, so hopefully someone else is, which is the classic version of Celeste. Has been ported onto Dreamcast. Celeste Classic.
I didn't realise that there was a Celeste Classic. I remember seeing Celeste ported to Dreamcast. I was like, what? Like, that's like a huge indie game. It's like a big in the indie space. It's like a sort of, I don't know if you'd call it a platformer. You kind of just you're sort of jumping around like caves and platforms, and it's all very kind of trial and error. Like you might miss a jump, and then you reload and try it again. But it's quite a skill based game. But yeah, it's very very cool. But yeah, I didn't realize that the original version of this game was actually a very quickly developed game by these devs that came out in 2016. So the one on Dreamcast is the original version, which I believe is still enjoyable. I'm going to give it a go. But yeah,
so the original version they made is a bit of a like test, and then they went on to build like a more developed, feature-rich. Okay,
a really beloved game, Celeste. I have played it. I did really enjoy it, but it was quite difficult. Yeah, I might give this one a go.
Yeah, I didn't get on with Celeste, to be honest. I remember reading about it and seeing all the hype and everyone, falling over themselves to sort of hold it up as this amazing game, which, if that's your bag, then I'm sure it is. But personally, I didn't get on with it. It reminded me a little bit of Super Meat Boy, that sort of weird sort of jumping around and,
you die a load of times.
Yeah. And I was it left me cold. I came away from it thinking, is this what everyone's raving about? I'm not a fan.
I thought you were doing a pun there, because isn't it literally based in like the snow, like the winter time? But that was the thing about Celeste for me, is like I really liked the seat.
Penny just dropped then. Sorry.
Yeah. I really liked the premise and like the characters and stuff, but like the actual gameplay I struggled with. So I really wanted to play more of it to see the story. But yeah, maybe someday.
Next up, then, is the classic Prince of Persia, which has been ported to Dreamcast by a chap called, I don't know his full name, but Jan, who goes by Memerix101 on X, and he's made a CDI available if you want to download this and grab it. And one nice little feature I saw is that it's got its own little VMU icon when you browse your VMU on the system itself. It's got its own little save file, which is quite cute. But yeah, obviously another classic game, Prince of Persia. I remember playing this again as a kid on my uncle's computer, and it was like revolutionary at the time. And then I played Prince of Persia very recently because I had it on. I bought an Analog Duo last year, so I've been on a bit of a PC Engine kick recently, and I burnt a CD version of the TurboGrafx or PC Engine port of Prince of Persia, and yeah, it's one of those games that was just so much better back in the day than it is now with the controls and the delay and things like that. But obviously another great one to see on Dreamcast for sure.
So I remember getting Prince of Persia for the Mega CD. And I hadn't played it before, and I was expecting it to be a bit like, because you kind of look at it and you think it's going to be like Flashback, like sort of all singing, all dancing, kind of super smooth rotoscoped animation type thing, and then you play it and then you die on the first screen, and you're like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And then you just die again and again and again. And it's just like, oh my god, I'm never ever going to complete this game. So I'm quite happy to look at it from afar. But
yeah, exactly. The animations are actually really, really slick on it for the time. It's just like and obviously it's coded this way, but the input delay almost when you press forward, it's kind of got that preset animation it's got to play out, so it just feels like there's a real big delay on when you press a button to the character actually doing something.
So this will now be the second Prince of Persia game playable on the Dreamcast, because there's an actual official release, isn't there?
There is, yeah. Prince of Persia 3D. Yeah.
I've never played that, but I've heard it's like okay.
It's all right. Yeah, I think I did an article on it on the Junkyard, many years ago. But it's all right.
They had quite a few attempts at bringing that IP back, didn't they? Prince of Persia. There's quite a few games on like the Xbox and 360, and then recently they brought the 2D style one back that was really good, but I don't think it sold very well. But it was a really good version of.
Don't forget the film with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh God, yeah.
Went to the cinema to watch that.
Do forget the film.
do forget the film, yeah.
Next up, then, is a Dreamcast port of Shinobi. So this is a port of, I believe, the Neo Geo port, which was done by disassembling the arcade source code, or the arcade back into source code, which meant that the gameplay of this version is literally arcade perfect, effectively. And then our favourite Ian Michael has then ported it over to Dreamcast. So again, I watched a video of this, but it looks to be running pretty fantastically at 60 frames and just looks like a typically high polished release that Ian Michael ultimately brings out. I don't think this is officially out yet. Is that right? But yeah, looking like another perfect release.
I think it is out actually. Yeah.
Okay.
But the person who did the original Neo Geo port's going to do Golden Axe apparently, so it'd be cool to see Ian Michael do that as well, like put that one on Dreamcast. I'm sure he will. He'll do it. He does everything.
Yeah, he'll do it and then go with all bells and whistles that nobody expected added on as well, probably. Yeah, I mean, obviously a game that we've seen and played probably dozens of times before, but as always, it's great to see these in as close to as you're ever going to get to playing it in an arcade environment, ported onto the Dreamcast. It's just lovely to have these classics available to download. The final one in this little section about ports is something that when I first saw it, I thought, is this a Dreamcast Junkyard April Fool's gag? And then I realised it wasn't. And it's one of those videos that you start watching and you think, this is ridiculous. And then you're absolutely hooked for the entire video.
Real late at night, YouTube, I should go to bed now vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I did watch this at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. Basically, you won't believe me how I say this, so please check out the video. But it is a guy who has managed to get the movie Shrek playing on a VMU screen plugged into a controller. Not by replacing the screen with a LCD or something like that. Oh no, it's in 2 colors. And he's managed to write some crazy scripting in the background that's basically turning the movie into thousands of individual image files.
It's like a slideshow.
Exactly. It's fascinating to go in and watch how he did this, and I think the full YouTube video, which we'll link, is about 17 minutes long. By the end of it, you'll wish it was like 27 minutes long, because it just always amazes me, the creativity and of these bonkers projects that people have. So yeah, if you ever fancy watching Shrek on a VMU screen with no sound, then go nuts.
Got you covered.
Because it's available.
This is exactly the crazy shit I come to expect from the homebrew community, and I love it.
Just to add, it's a guy called, I think you probably pronounce it Captain Kuso.
Yeah.
CAPTKUSO.
Big Drill.
And he is, yes. It's also the guy who created, or girl, I don't know, who created Big Drill. So props to them.
I love the video description, which says, "Have you ever looked at something and thought, I can make this worse?"
Is he talking about Shrek or the Dreamcast?
Well, I thought that you could get Shrek on the GBA game video cartridge. I thought that was possibly the worst version to watch that film, but here we go. Yeah.
Well, I thought that's where it was going at first, because when I was watching the video, he did show the Game Boy Advance version of it, and I was just assuming it was going to be like a screen swap on the VMU screen or something, and it was going to. I don't know, and that's where I thought it was going. I didn't think it was going in the direction that it actually ended up going in. But yeah, it's one of those things you have to see to believe. And fair play to him for sticking it out, because he did. If you watch the video, he did come across some issues. Obviously, he had to watch the entire movie to make sure it all worked, which is how he uncovered some of the issues that he found with it not loading frames after a certain point and whatever. But yeah, if you want to giggle and you've got a few minutes spare, watch the video, because he deserves the clicks for the amount of effort he went through to make this happen, because it is absolutely hilarious. So if you do one thing after this show, watch it.
One thing that I did particularly like before we move on was the way that he set up some popcorn and then sat down with a Dreamcast controller with a VMU stuck in it to start watching Shrek in monochrome. Like, what?
Like, how do you explain that when your missus comes in and just sat there with a pint? With a pint and but yeah, fair play, good effort. It certainly gave us a laugh, and as I said, definitely something to check out from the lighter side of the Dreamcast community.
son. Where'd you find this?
Next up, then, is certainly not the lighter side of the Dreamcast community, because the workload involved in this, although I've not been involved firsthand, I can imagine it is spectacular as far as the workload involved. Someone who has been involved heavily in the translation community alongside Derek and his team is Lewis. So, Lewis, there's some exciting new translations coming out for the Dreamcast. So, walk us through those.
Yes, indeed. The first one is Space Channel 5 Part 2, which, as listeners probably know, never came to the Dreamcast in English-speaking regions, or Europe and America. And there has been a patch to translate it for the Dreamcast into English, but it had a lot of sort of PlayStation 2 stuff that had been pulled over from there. A new one's been released, and it really kind of irons a lot of the issues out and makes everything a little bit more consistent to how it would actually be if you were playing the game, as an official English release. So that's cool. And then probably more interesting as far as new things that have been translated as opposed to improvements on older translation patches is Puyo Puyo Da, which I didn't realize was actually a Naomi port. So this is a Naomi port for the Dreamcast. And this is like a Puyo Puyo rhythm game, which I probably will not play that much of because I suck at rhythm games. Anyone played Puyo Puyo Da before?
No.
No, I've never heard of it until today when I...
Well, now you can. Now you can in English. And then the other one is kind of... I've been talking about Dreamcast translation patches. This is a little bit different. So obviously everyone wants a Sega Gaga English translation patch. If you put out other translation patches, people will say, why isn't this Sega Gaga? Translate Sega Gaga. The reason why Sega Gaga isn't being translated is because of various technical issues, mainly to do with the way the text is in the game. So, for example, in quite a lot of translation patches, they use a font sheet. So you edit the font sheet to be English characters, put it in. Jobs are good, and I make it sound easier than it actually is. It takes a lot of work. But in the case of Sega Gaga, the text is actually tied to the Dreamcast's BIOS, so it's not that easy to just, stick in a load of English and, you're away. So that's the reason why we haven't received this translation. Not because, there's not a load of passionate translators who'd be up for the job. They are making a lot of progress with it, but it's still got work to be done. So what someone thought could be something they could do in the meantime is they've remade the game in the Godot engine. They originally started in the Unreal Engine 5, and this looks really good. It's effectively imagine a HD re-release of Sega Gaga, and so the idea here, I did wonder originally if this was going to be, if the Dreamcast version's having technical issues, how about we do this on the PC, and that at least gives people a way to play this in English. But it seems like the developer, called Ren Gundo, is mainly working on, at least in this case, the first chapter, just so people have something to play in English. Yeah, and so that's what they've done. I don't think they're going to do any more chapters after this, but, when it comes out, you will be able to play the first chapter of this game in English in some way. Like I say, it won't be on Dreamcast, but it is a really cool thing that they're doing. And honestly, I'd quite like to see the whole thing be done in this style. It is really cool to see it kind of upscaled and made all nice and shiny, but yeah, obviously they don't want to step on the toes of those trying to do a Dreamcast version, which I respect. So yeah,
Lewis, I've noticed quite a lot of, two articles on the Dreamcast Junkyard blog recently, which are about Sega Gaga. The interview you did with the guy who actually worked on the original game was really quite fascinating. Mm-hmm. So yeah, kudos for all that effort.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's a bit of a coincidence that the game takes place in 2025, and these two articles are what I think maybe the Doom 64 one was in the middle, but yeah, those were like two of the first articles out this year have been ones about Sega Gaga. So yeah, everyone's like, this is the year for the translation, but we'll see.
Let's hope. Yeah, it looks really impressive. So that's let me get it right. Is it because I've watched the intro and that you shared? Is it all the assets from the Dreamcast version kind of put together?
Yeah, like upscaled. Yeah,
wow, it's brilliant.
And to add as well, they added they got English voice actors to do the voice acting as well, which is really cool. And I believe it uses the open source translation by Ross, from the Junkyard. He did an open source translation project of the first chapter. So yeah, it uses that as well, which is cool.
Just on the topic of Ross, I did message him and tell him that they'd used his hard work to create this new version. And it turns out he's working in Japan as a minister. Doing weddings and things. A bit random, but I just thought I'd chuck that one in there. He sent me a photo of him in all of his gear. He's not like an actual priest. Apparently it's just a thing that Japanese couples like to be, married by, Western people who are ministers. Bizarre. I don't know.
He's a busy guy.
So if you went to Japan, Ross could see you married, and then you could.
Are you proposing to me, Lewis?
Moving on.
You could marry your copy of Doom 64 in Japan.
But yeah, that's all for translation stuff anyway.
All good. And it's, again, I say this every time as well, it's amazing that we're having these frequent conversations about Dreamcast games being translated. These previously unattainable games that we couldn't play, having even the option to play some of those now. It's uncovering all these games that some of us never even knew existed. And we can experience Taxi 2 now, in all its glory, which is...
Thank God for that.
We've got a few bits of news on the sort of the indie scene, ranging from commercial releases to projects that are ongoing at the moment. We'll start off with two games that were kind of funded and advertised towards the end of last year, which have now sort of found their way into people's hands. The first of those is the Dreamcast release of Flea 2. My copy arrived, I think, last week, as I know a lot of others did. Obviously, the Flea, the original, was quite a big hit, and on the Dreamcast as well. And this was the sequel to that. So good to see that hitting shelves. Good production quality as usual. Lovely box. Don't know if you boys are ripping yours open to play, or are you keeping it sealed on a shelf?
I've not got mine yet. Have you got yours, Lozz, or anyone else?
I missed the boat on the Kickstarter funding. Well, I say I missed the boat. I was deliberately waiting because I was hoping that there was going to be a certain publisher might have done it. And now I regret it massively because I remember how good Flea 1 was. But yeah.
I'm sure it'll be available.
Because Wave did did they do the original? I know they did the original game, but was it self-published before they did
it?
They re-released it.
Yeah, because I've got the Wave version of the original. I ended up doing I was lucky enough to get the early bird backer, which was the cheaper option of the versions. But obviously really nice case anyway. It looks fantastic. It's designed like the American design with the white Dreamcast kind of lid outline on the side. So that was a nice one. And then another game that's just literally arrived today for me that has got very similar packaging with the same sort of styling, the American sort of art, but it's significant because it is the first release from Orcface, which is the storied sword. Lozz, you can talk us a little bit about this one in a second, but just to note here that for those of you who aren't aware, obviously Orcface are a new publisher who are trying to, they're obviously working on their own games as well, like Harlequest, but they are publishing Dreamcast games now, and they're trying to become the sort of de facto Dreamcast indie publisher. I think that's what they're kind of looking to achieve. And if the first release is anything to go by from a quality perspective, then we've got nothing to worry about. But yeah, Lozz, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So the Storied Sword is a game that was originally developed for the NES and published on that console. And Orcface have handled publishing duties for the port to the Dreamcast. It's kind of an action platformer, I suppose. The back of the case says it's swashbuckling 8-bit action with death-defying wall jumps and a storybook adventure, which is all true. I found the storybook, the story aspect of it was a little bit derivative. However, it does open with a C.S. Lewis quote and then drops verses of poetry before each of the boss fights, which redeems it. In my eyes, it won't be to everyone's taste because although as you said, James, the physical side of the publication has been handled extremely well, very high production values, and whilst the game runs very smoothly on the Dreamcast, it still is ultimately a NES game, so it won't be to everyone's taste. However, I think the pricing is what drew me in. If this was priced at £30-40, there's no chance in hell I would have bought it, but I got a physical copy for £15, and I think you can even get the digital version for £9. So in terms of supporting, I think it's worth supporting Orcface, given
so reasonable.
And you get the digital for free as well if you buy the physical.
Indeed, yes.
Yeah, I was very candid with Ross at Orcface around it, because I share the same thing as you. It was the NES ports to the Dreamcast published as indie games don't really excite me in any great. I'm not one of these people who has to have every single release, and obviously, like a lot of us, I want to see original games made for Dreamcast rather than ported from the NES or other retro systems. But as you say, for £15, it's absolutely worth it if you are, looking to support the new publisher when it comes to Dreamcast games, because obviously they do have some original games lined up, and the more games like this are supported, the more there's a likelihood that obviously new games will be made. I should mention that although it's an NES port, there has been some optimization for the Dreamcast as well. So it's not just a ROM on a disc, for example. It's nothing groundbreaking, but there are things like the controllers been remapped, so you've got use of the extra buttons. There's things like having a VMU icon on the screen, on the VMU screen as you go, and I think the original ROM, if you do want it, is on the disc as well, if you wanted to put it into and play it on a NES emulator or whatever. And I think it's got the soundtrack on the disc as well if you pop it into a CD player. So nothing groundbreaking, but again, it's nice that there's been some effort into making it more than just a straightforward NES port. There has been some thought into it, and as you say, the production quality of the disc, the manual that comes with it, and everything else is really fantastic. And I hope this is kind of setting the standard for what the future releases from Orcface are going to look like. So yeah, if you haven't got it already, as I said, it's only £15, which is an absolutely fair price for what we're getting. And hopefully it'll be the first of many releases to come from Orcface. And in fact, they do tease their next release in the manual for for the Storied Sword, which is another NES port, but it is the another one of John Riggs' games, the Choo Choo Mimic, I think it's called, this one.
Also by the developer of Flea as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Alistair low tech.
Yeah. So yeah, expect a similar sort of thing, I would imagine, with that one. Same sort of optimization for Dreamcast, same sorts of bonus stuff, and obviously, well, I'm hoping a nice another universal packaging and things like that. I do hope they look into some sort of blue packaging though, like Wave used to. I don't know if they're doing this to sort of separate themselves from the Wave releases a little bit, but obviously being based in the UK, the Wave packaging was brilliant with the PAL sort of look and feel about it without it being in a crazy fragile case. So yeah, so definitely one to look on. Any other comments from any of you guys on the Storied Sword or Orcface publishing in general?
Just from me, looking at the Storied Sword, it reminds me a lot of a game I used to play on the Amstrad called Super Robin Hood. So that's nice. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Orcface come up with in the future. Obviously, they're going to be, as you mentioned, bringing us Harley Quest in the future. So yeah, it's looking good, I think.
Yeah, I think it's also like very developer focused as well. Like Ross seems like a super cool dude. So like, if anyone there wants to get their game out, I'm sure him and all the developers he knows could help. To help those see the light of day. So that's exciting.
Definitely.
And they Orcface did a really good Harley Quest update. Was it yesterday on Kickstarter? And said, explained about, the Storied Sword and stuff like that, but also shared some 3D assets from Harley Quest, which were cool to see, and also said that the game was hopefully going to be finished in Q3 of 2025.
Brilliant. And that game looks fantastic. I mean, it's one of my most exciting indie releases for Dreamcast. I think it's got the potential, I'm putting it on a big pedestal here, I think it's got a potential to be seen as one of the best indie games made for Dreamcast ever, which I think most people would think Stormwind when they think of that. So it's got a pretty big bar to climb over, but it looks phenomenal, and even the very, very, very early demo that was released plays really nicely and is really sharp and snappy from a control perspective. So I've got real high hopes for that one. Super looking forward to it. Next up then is a game that I'd never heard of before, and when I looked it up, I originally thought it was some sort of a clone of what's the game called? In my head, I'm thinking Dungeons and Dragons. It's not Dungeons and Dragons. It's
Ghouls and Ghosts.
Ghosts and Goblins. Ghosts. Whatever the heck version it is. Yeah. But it turns out it's just like an homage to it. It was an actual release, and back in 2012, I believe, originally. It's called Maldita Castilla, which basically translates roughly to Dreaded Castle or something like that. Like I said, if you look up Ghouls and Ghosts, it looks very similar to gameplay-wise to that. I've not played it myself, but this is on its way to Dreamcast. Again, Sega Guru did a video on this showing it off. What's the details on? I don't know if you know any more than me, Lewis. Has this got any release date? Is it out now? Is it going to be published as a boxed version?
Yeah, this is one that I saw go up, and if I'm honest, I've not looked into it that much because most of the information was in Spanish, but I do believe the game itself will be in English for the English speakers amongst us. I don't know.
Hablo español, Lewis.
No hablo inglés. I don't know when it's coming out, but it will be at some point. That's all I can say for now.
Yeah, we'll put a link. We'll put a link again to the video so you guys can have a look at it, and we shall keep you posted of any physical releases or if it's just download only. A bit of negative news to end on as far as indie stuff is concerned. Then two things really. The first of which is there was a 3D platformer in development called Rizzo Island, and the developers have announced just a week or so ago that the development has been cancelled on the game. They are not going to be carrying on with the production. However, they are planning on giving any donations or making as much donations refundable as they possibly can for certainly those who are under $40, I think they say on their press release. Again, we'll link to the release here. So yeah, I didn't know much about this game, to be honest. I'd seen a few videos of it before, and I know it's been a long time in production, but the official press release basically states that it was just, change in circumstances effectively, in why the project is cancelled. Obviously, it sucks to see Dreamcast projects cancelled, and I know there was some talk on the forums about, why not just make it open source and let the community finish it off.
I think they did in the end with that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. Tom, you talked about this like ages ago
like 10
on
years
the blog.
ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wrote an article about this and did a short video in 2018 because I spoke to the developer and just wanted to give it a bit of a sort of signal boost. It was a game that the developer, a guy called David Croshaw, created as a bit of an homage to his uncle, who it was called Tom Rizzo, and that's what the game's about. You play as Tom Rizzo on this island, basically going around collecting like music CDs and stuff. It was quite a cool little game. It was using the Quake engine back when I played it. I don't know if that changed, but yeah, it was fun. It's quite sad to hear that it's now not going to be finished, but I mean, it's still out there. You can still download it. You can still play it on a Dreamcast. So just search for it and you'll find it.
Yeah, one of the Dream Disc entries was actually an offshoot of this. It was called Rizzo Island Remix, and that submission is basically the last Rizzo Island thing. And when you complete it, there's a little tribute at the end to his uncle, which is really nice, kind of way to tie it all up. So, yeah, I'd recommend playing that. It's pretty cool. And there's actually Tom Rizzo's music plays, which is really cool when you're playing it. So, yeah, it's a shame, but they have said they're not going to stop development. It's just this particular project they're going to, unfortunately, shelve and go do other things in development, which is cool because, nothing better than a new page, I suppose. Yeah.
And I have to say, obviously, it's disappointing, but I have to say they've handled it absolutely the right way. They put a press release out. They've offered refunds to any donations that were made. As I said, I assume that was done via what it says on there from itch.io page or from Patreon. So they're offering to refund people who donated. And obviously, this isn't even like a Kickstarter where you're pledging to get something back. They're obviously just donations to help the development. So, there's been plenty of higher profile examples of failed Dreamcast projects where people have just basically disappeared and not given any sort of final update. So it's
Elysian Shadows. Elysian Shadows.
I wasn't gonna name names, but it's at least a nice kind of way of
Sorry,
at least they've done it the right way, right? And this is a good message for any future projects because stuff, shit happens, right? And stuff doesn't get finished for whatever. But, you can't just ignore that and move on. So fair play to Mr. Croshaw, who's at least posted that. And yeah, hopefully we'll see some stuff out of him in the future. And then finally, I mentioned a Neo Byte Force game earlier on because I had Captain Barrel for Christmas. They made a few releases, which again were really well produced, really nice box art. They are stopping distribution of their physical indie titles to focus on development now. And obviously with Neo Byte Force and with Wave no longer sort of in the market, as it were, for Dreamcast produced games, it's becoming even more apparent that we hope Orcface Games succeeds where others maybe haven't. This news came as a complete shock to me, to be honest, that Neo Byte Force were stopping because I thought they were just getting a bit of momentum, really, because I forget the name of the other game now, which I also have on my shelf somewhere. Cyborg Force, wasn't it, the other one? again, really, really nicely produced discs, really nicely produced boxes. I don't know if anyone else knows any more about why they're stopping distribution. But yeah, it's a shame to see those guys go as well.
I suppose they will still continue development, which is good. So you will see their games. They do seem to be working with someone else. Says Japan Game Online. I've not been on that website, but I did go on the website and didn't see anything on there yet. So, but maybe they will put out physical releases in the future. We'll see. I suppose it's all down to costs at the end of the day. If people need to buy these games and support the publishers, right? So,
yeah, and I think, and this is why again I've been a big supporter of a universal approach for indies to get their games published, and I think this is why I really wanted Wave to succeed. I really want Orcface to succeed, in that if you can take that hassle away from an indie development team, and you can also ensure that you're making a little bit of just of profit for yourself as a publisher. It also means that we get all these Dreamcast releases coming out in the same format, in the same packaging, and as I've said a few times on the podcast, for me that's really important as a collector, because it's just nice to have that uniformity across releases. So, the standard of things we get nowadays compared to what it was like 10, 15 years ago is astronomically better. But, appreciate that whenever you're dealing with things in a limited quantity, there's obviously always going to be margins that have got to be hit for these things to be breaking even or potentially profitable. And I guess it just, as I said, there's a place there for somebody to kind of be that central point, and hopefully that can be Orcface.
Bring back Red Spot Games, I say, as well. I want them alongside.
And don't forget Pixel Heart; they still exist.
And Pixel Heart, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What about Josh Prod? They're still going, aren't they?
I never got the difference. Is that the same as
thing.
Pixel Heart?
No, it's really confusing. It's odd, but yeah, that's the same thing.
All right, so final topic then of the day is something that I'm just going to hand over to Lewis, because I haven't got the energy to talk about Shenmue anymore, to be honest. So yeah, Lewis, take us through what's been happening in the Shenmue community.
Well, Shenmue, which turned 25 in December, at least of the Japanese release, Famitsu conducted a very interesting interview looking back at Shenmue and its development with some of the developers. And they confirmed something very interesting, which is that the first game actually is. They confirmed that internally in Sega there was a PlayStation 2 version, and it was running and it functioned, and they detailed that they had to basically reprogram it to support specific shaders that the Dreamcast used. And then there was also an Xbox version. Obviously, we got Shenmue 2 on the Xbox, but there was an Xbox version of the first game. But apparently, that didn't get released due to licensing issues with Coca-Cola and Timex, which seems a little bit like something that would have been fairly easy to remove. But I don't know what was going on.
Didn't the PAL version not have the licensing, the Coca-Cola
exactly?
Licensing anyway?
So that's even more to the point. I don't know why, but. It would have been quite cool for the Xbox fans to have been able to play the first and then, move to the second game and, transfer all your saves. But yeah, it's just crazy that they had two versions. I mean, that just shows how much Sega hates Shenmue. They were like, right, we've got a PS2 version, Xbox version, don't release it. But obviously the community of Shenmue is mega passionate, and another kind of in the same vein as GTA, that kind of proof that it could have happened is Frogball, who we've seen before. He's done proof of concepts showing like Crash Bandicoot running on the Saturn.
I've seen his stuff. Really cool.
Metal
Is it
Gear
Metal Gear
Solid
Solid
2.
2?
Yeah, on the Dreamcast. Really cool stuff.
Also did one of the Dream Disc games.
He did, yeah. He did Black Hole Descent, which is really cool as well. Another good graphical showcase on the Dreamcast. But yeah, he basically did a little video showing Shenmue running on the Saturn, and it looks pretty good.
It's quite funny. Like Ryu's like totally stationary but moving around almost like some sort of like car.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it must have been so hard to get that going. Is he just in the arcade?
Yeah, it's just the scene in the arcade, but it's really cool and
brilliant.
Yeah, so Frogball, keep doing what you're doing. It's really awesome.
Lewis, how as a obviously I don't know much about Shenmue. Well, I don't know an awful lot of the intricacies of Shenmue. I know that it was originally designed and built on Saturn architecture, right? Because there were some videos of it running on Saturn. How much of it actually was built on Saturn? Do we know? Like, has there been any? Has that code been released? Has anyone actually been able to get the original the running, or is that all just?
I'm not sure entirely how far along it was, but there is footage that looks really like quite far along.
Wasn't it called Virtual Fighter RPG? And
yes, yeah.
Isn't it right that the Shenmue that we know on the Dreamcast is completely different? It's not like they moved it; they like started again on the Dreamcast, I think.
I guess, yeah. I don't know how all that works, where they move development from one console to the other, but.
But for all intents and purposes, it looks like a Saturn version of the Shenmue that we know, the videos that I've seen anyway, even if they are just like fight scenes or whatever. It looks like it. If you'd have showed it to me and not told me the Saturn didn't come out, the Shenmue didn't come out on Saturn, I would have just said, oh, that's just a Saturn version of it, you know. I was just curious if that ever got into the hands of the public and if people have actually compiled it.
I swear I've heard the Shira guys talk about that, so maybe, but I'm not an expert, so.
I believe Yu Suzuki mentioned that it's like, I don't know, probably stuffed away in a vault somewhere. But yeah, people really wish that'd be released, but I don't think it ever will. It'd be so cool to see it, like, because there's that kind of thing that you see a lot online, like what Frogball is doing, where it's like, wouldn't it be cool if they did, I don't know, for example, like Code Veronica, but with old PS1 graphics, you know, stuff like that, where like D-makes they're called, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like it is. So it is cool to see like Shenmue, but like on the Saturn. It is. Yeah, it's really cool.
Just on the D-make thing, it made me think. And I remember last year that someone released a like a Bloodborne kart game that was like, but it's PS1 kind of D-make, and that was really, really cool. Actually, I do like stuff like that. All right. That takes us to the end then of today's DreamPod. Before we go, of course, we've got a few minutes left to test our Dreamcast knowledge of our Prestige panel with the now customary Dreamcast 10 questions. So we've got some pretty heavy hitters on the panel today, so I'm not expecting any problems. A reminder of the rules for everybody. So my panel can ask me any question they like as long as I can answer yes or no to it. They have to ask me 10 questions or up to 10 questions to work out which Dreamcast game I'm thinking of. And on the 11th question, effectively, they have to guess. So 10 questions and a guess. They work together, and let's see how they get on. So over to you guys.
It's definitely Spirit of Speed. Anyway.
I've got some proper horrible questions that James is going to disapprove of.
Go on, Lozz. Let's hear them.
One? My first one was going to be, does the title begin with the letter between A and L?
You're not having that. That's nonsense. That's a nonsense. It's not just a random guessing game. Come on, you've got to ask actual questions and flex your Dreamcast brains.
I feel like region is always what you should point out, get to first. Like, was it released in, I don't know, all regions? I don't know, what does that, do you guys think that's...
Yeah, go for that.
Yeah,
was
great question.
Yeah.
Was it
First
released
question,
in all 3 regions, James?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Oh, shit.
Okay, I think next thing to think about then is probably genre, isn't it? So, can we ask multi Like
Yeah, so that was the
multi-
tip I gave them last time. So if you could
Oh,
say,
yeah.
is it a platformer, an RPG, or a puzzle game? At least then you know it could yes or no to one of those. You know.
Okay. So is it a racing game, a first-person shooter, or a platformer?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That narrows it down.
A racing game or first-person shooter. Well,
I think
FPS.
it's a racing game.
Yeah, because there's hardly any FPSs really.
You
There's
know,
a handful.
every time I do this, people say it's going to be a racing game. Literally every single time we do it.
There's not that many platformers really.
It was
either.
Revolt,
There's like
wasn't it?
Rayman and
No, Revolt was the first one.
Okay.
The last one was
Rayman, I think.
Rayman, correct? Yeah, it's been
do we
Rayman.
just ask if it's a? Should we just ask if it's a racing game then?
Yeah, is it a racing game?
Yes.
All right, so you're just trying to trick us.
How about there's a handful of racing games that are online. We could ask if it has online playability.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, does it have
Wait,
online
hold on.
multiplayer?
Hold on.
James?
Has or had? Because
Ooh,
it could be one that's not online yet.
ha.
Did it ship?
Did it
with
ever
online?
have?
Yeah.
Was it ever playable online?
No.
Okay. You online dudes are going to have to help us out here. Which
So that
games
rules
weren't
out
online?
that rules out F355, 4x4 Evolution,
Monaco.
Toy Racer, and Daytona.
Speed
Oh, and
Devils
Speed
online.
Devils online as well.
Pod.
Pod, and it also rules out Monaco 2.
Bear in mind it's in every region. So did some of those not release in
No,
Japan?
Pod didn't come out in Japan, did it? I don't think. Right, so it's a
That's
racing
racing
game
game.
that came out in all 3 regions and didn't have online abilities.
What about? I'm trying to think. There's some like Sega GT, a racing game that came out in all regions.
Here's a good
Yes,
question. Could be: is it like a real world like racer, like factual racing, or is it like fantasy? You know, like cartoony stuff, or like futuristic?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
So I suppose that's the question. If I can put it into a better
Yeah. Can you
sentence
give me?
structure.
Yeah. Like, what am I answering?
Actual
here?
English. Okay, is it like a real world racing game?
I don't know what that means though.
Realistic it's like slight simulation or simulation.
Like, is it cartoon?
Simulation has got a
if they're
very
racing
specific.
cars. You could ask if they're racing cars. Maybe.
I'm just trying to think how to
Like,
word
is it
this.
based in the real world or kind of cartoony
Okay, yeah, you can ask
fantasy
that
sort
one.
of thing?
Okay, yeah. So what are you asking?
Yeah.
He knows that this question's going to give it away. So he's,
No, but you still
yeah, you do.
give me a,
You know.
give me a question.
Yeah. Okay. So is it based in reality?
Yes.
It's based on reality, right? So it's based
Yes.
on reality, right? Okay.
It could be Tokyo Highway Challenge, couldn't it?
It could
Or one
be
of those
V
two.
Rally or Sega Rally
Or Metropolis Street Racer.
or MSR 4x4.
How many do
Spirit
we have left,
Speed.
James?
I think
It's
that was
fine,
your
isn't it?
fifth. That was your fifth. Yes, you've got 5
Okay.
questions left.
Okay. So it's based in reality. So it's from that I take it's got actual like cars in it, not like floating things or cartoon characters or anything like
Be
that.
motorbikes though.
Good shout. Yeah,
And it could
good.
also be, the boats. Is Hydro Thunder reality or not?
It's
I'd
a
say
reality.
not.
Well, okay then. Well, does it feature traditional like automobiles, like 4-wheeled cars?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a car game.
I'll give you another clue, right? If you listen, this is the box opening.
Oh, brilliant. Unmistakable.
We could ask if it's on, if you're racing on off-road or on a track.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's-
do it.
yeah.
Yeah, that I guess that would narrow it down a little bit more.
Are you racing on a track or off-road, James?
I can't answer yes or no to that.
Oh, both.
Well, no, I can't answer. That's not a yes or no.
just-
You say, are you,
Is it an
you
off-road
racing?
racer?
Oh, I see
No.
what you mean. Yeah.
No,
pick
it's
on
not
me.
an off-road
Okay,
racer.
there's a track racer, so it could be like Sega GT.
So it's a real-world racer based on tracks. Came out in all regions. Didn't have online multiplayer.
Le Mans. Did that come out?
Is it based around motorsports?
No.
Right. So that count
What?
that counts out like Formula One or
It's a
Le
good
Mans
question, that, Tom.
or anything like that. So it's basically.
So would that cancel out?
You got three more
Sega GT.
questions.
Well, Sega GT has like homologated cars in it, doesn't it? So like standard sort of family saloons and stuff. So I suppose that could still technically be in with a shout.
So what about Metropolis Street Racer?
That could also be in there as well.
What would differentiate the two? Because both are all regions.
But then you've got things like Vanishing Point as well. Oh, it could be. We could ask if it's an exclusive to the Dreamcast, because if it's on other systems, that could count out a number of other ones as well.
That's true. Because wasn't Sega GT on PC? I don't know if that would count. I don't know. Yeah.
It was, yeah. But like things like Vanishing Point were also on the PS1. Shall I just ask that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, is it a Dreamcast exclusive?
I'm going to say yes, because this particular game is a Dreamcast exclusive.
Okay. Could he be
Does that mean it's part
referring
of
to
the
how
series?
NSR ended up being developed into Project Gotham?
Yes.
Or how some other game has had a sequel or a prequel on another console?
I mean, there's things like Roadsters, but they do have subtle differences in the different ports.
No, I'm not being that cryptic. It's not like it wouldn't be like if. I know I'm not going to give anything else away, but it's not like it's got one different car or something like that, which makes it an exclusive version. It's not that cryptic.
How many questions have we got left? 2.
2.
Bloody hell!
So really one, and then we've got to guess it. Is that what?
No,
it
you
is?
got 2 and a guess.
Oh, okay, right.
So it's either Metropolis Street Racer, Sega GT. What else could it be? I don't know. Because Sega GT had sequels, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Wasn't there one on the Xbox?
Yeah, Sega GT 2002, I think it was.
So how would we differentiate, perhaps, between those two?
We could just ask, does it feature a recreation of London?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it feature a recreation of London?
No.
No.
Damn. So we've got one more
not
question.
So it's not Metropolis Street Racer then? No.
So what do we know? We know it's a racing game.
It's all regions. It's a racing game. It's never been online. It is a quote realistic racing game. It's not off-road. It's not based around motorsport. It's not exclusive to it is exclusive to Dreamcast, and it does not feature London.
What about like 18-wheeler? Was that in all regions? It's not a racing game, is it?
I mean, you do technically race against the rival.
Yeah.
But
Was that in all regions?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, we could ask if it was an arcade port.
That could be our final question, I suppose.
Yeah, shall I go for it?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, James, was it an arcade port?
No.
Oh, fuck.
So that's it then. That's all our questions, is it?
Is Sega
Yeah.
GT an arcade port? I don't know.
No.
No.
It could be that. It could be the one.
Is James gonna? Because he said it was exclusive, but was on PC, and it had sequels. I don't know.
I think Sega GT is probably the best shout, to be honest.
What about
Yeah.
F355, or was that online?
Online.
No, that had online.
Okay.
That was a port though, wasn't it? That was an arcade port. And he said
And it was
no.
an arcade
It was.
port, yeah.
Yeah.
So do we have to guess now, James?
You do. I mean, you can give up
Okay.
if you want, but
I think Tom should do it.
Okay, so I'm going to guess.
Put us out of our misery.
Is it Sega GT?
It is not.
What is it?
Do you want me to tell you, or do you want to ask any more questions?
I want you to tell us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
It was developed by Climax Entertainment.
Oh.
It was released in 2000 in all regions apart from Japan when it was released in 2001.
Oh.
It was published in Europe by Virgin Interactive. And it was a sequel
Oh,
to
is
a
it Super
PlayStation game.
Runabout?
It is Super Runabout San Francisco Edition.
That's not a racing game.
It is, though, isn't it? I knew you were going to say that. But what
It's not
what
really
would you
a
call it?
racing
Okay,
game.
what would you call it?
I don't know, like an open world sandbox mess.
So how long would we have gone in genre to get that? You still race against the clock in it in a car.
Yeah,
To me, that's a
okay.
racing game.
Also, one of the few Dreamcast games that actually features petrol stations.
Yeah.
As I found out when I did the article about petrol stations a few years ago.
So fun fact, I had this game for Christmas one year, and I really friggin' liked it. I think I got it. I think it was a demo. Yeah, I think there was a demo of it on one of the Dream On discs, on magazine discs, which I played, and I was like, "Oh, it's really cool." It's really hard, actually, but it is good. Like if you get past the first mission where you've got to basically drive to get hot dog buns and lettuce.
I'm just watching footage of it right now, and it says on the screen, "Get the sausage."
It's actually quite cool.
Yeah,
It's
one of
good
the
car
first games.
models.
One of the first games I had on the Xbox was a game called Reckless, which is like a sort of a spiritual successor to Super Runabout. You know, you're just going to race around trying to like get things and get to places before the timer runs out.
I think I've played that, and it also reminds me of Midtime Madness.
Yeah. Well, good game.
That's our first one that we failed, isn't it?
Yeah, apart from the first one, Mike and who was on with Mike when they
Lozz.
didn't get revolved?
It wasn't me.
And then it got too easy, and now maybe 10 questions is not enough. Maybe we need to go to like 12 questions or something. I don't know.
Find the sweet spot, yeah.
Hopefully you got that at home and you were shouting at your car's playing device or your iPod or whatever you used to play at the boys for not getting that right. Thank you for joining us. This has been the 138th Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. It's amazing we've done so many. You can find the Junkyard at thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk and at the DC Junkyard on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Do we have any other social stuff that I'm unaware of, Lewis?
We're on Discord. The link is on the side of the website to get to that. We're also on Facebook groups, YouTube. We're also on Blue Sky. I don't know what the thing for that is. I think it's literally just the dreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. Like you can actually use your domain on that, so that's quite cool. But yeah, people seem to be on that as well. I've noticed it's not as I thought it'd be a bit of a barren wasteland when I logged in, but there's actually quite a lot of people on there. So yeah, you can follow us on there. And yeah, that's probably all for the social media.
Fabulous. We obviously have some opportunities for you guys to support us with Buy Me a Coffee and with Patreon. I think we've got some shout outs to do, Lewis.
Yeah, so recent Buy Me a Coffee donation is someone called A Bit of John. Thank you, John, I presume. And then 2 new Patreons. So it's Chris Walter and Hey There, Tyler. Thank you very much to anyone who donates to help us, fund the junkyard and keep our operating costs in check.
Yes, indeed, and it does not go to Tom Charnock. He doesn't have dividends and shares in the Dreamcast Junkyards. It just goes to our ever-increasing server bills and things like that. So yes, much appreciated to everyone who does feel like they want to support us. But obviously, just downloading these episodes is great support. So thank you for that, chaps. Where can people find you if they want more? Start with you, pizza. Look at me. I'll start with you, Harvey.
I make music under Pizza Hotline. Stick it into Spotify, YouTube, the other ones.
Perfect.
You'll find
Tom,
me.
are you still elusive on the internet, or have you got
Yeah, I don't really deal with any of that stuff anymore.
Fine.
If you want me, just
PO Box 55, the Dreamcast Junkyard. It's a bit like when you send a letter to Father Christmas, you just put Santa the North Pole. If you just put Tom, the Dreamcast Junkyard, on an envelope, then the postman will manage to deliver it for you.
I was going to say, if you shine a Dreamcast swirl-shaped light into the sky, I'll just appear at your window, breathing heavily on the glass.
I can see you breathing heavily on the glass and then just like doing the spiral on the bit that you've just breathed on the glass.
Like Pob.
Oh, brilliant. Lewis, where are you?
I am on X and Blue Sky at Lewis JFC. I can't remember what the Blue Sky equivalent is, but yeah. And then also on the Junkyard, go check out the interview Tom mentioned, the Sega Gaga one, and also I'll have a whole article about the Dream Disc entries, which were a lot of fun to play. So yeah, you can read my short thoughts on each entry there. So yeah, check it out.
Brilliant. And finally, last but not least, Lozz.
You can find me on Blue Sky under my real life name, which is Lawrence Goodchild. Aside from that, I'd highly recommend visiting the blog because Tom and Lewis have published some really top tier stuff lately, so you'd be missing out if you don't visit it.
And also Lozz, who published a GTA 3 article. There you go. I'm throwing it back.
What a loving. This is getting a bit sickly now, isn't it?
Well, thank you all for listening. As always, we love to hear from the community as well. So if anyone's got any comments or game suggestions, even for the quiz at the end, you just join our Discord. We're all active in there for the most part as well. So we'd love to hear from you. So please reach out. But thank you for listening, and we will see you again on the next show.
Bye.
This is the Dreamcast disc. 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 And is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now.